Welcome to Josh's House of Nerd podcast.
Greetings, Nerd Nation. I'm Josh, and I welcome you to the podcast. Grab a cold evergreen goblet of blue milk and make yourself comfortable here at my House of Nerd. Now, for tonight's sponsor, are you sick and tired of the same old games of chess, checkers, backgammon, as well as poker? Are you waiting to hear those magic words of, would you like to play a game? Well, the wait is over, and War Game Systems has the game for you. Introducing Global Thermonuclear War. From DEFCON 5 to DEFCON 1 and the boom of a nuclear cruise missile. This game has it all. Global Thermonuclear War. This game will blow your mind. Not a sponsor.
Gotta love that early Matthew Broderick.
You got it, buddy. War, hey. All right. Today on the podcast, we are on a new subject for the month, which is war movies. And this week, we are talking about my pick, the 1989 movie Glory, directed by Edward Zwick, about the 54th Massachusetts Infantry Regiment and the Union Army's first African-American regiment in the American Civil War. Starring Matthew Broderick, Denzel Washington, Carl Ewells, Andre Braugher, and Morgan Freeman. And hey, for you Trekkies out there, we even had a little cameo from Neelix himself from Star Trek Voyager, Ethan Phillips. Let's talk about the movie, guys. Did you guys see Ethan Phillips in there?
I think we should just talk about Ethan Phillips the whole time.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is the Ethan Phillips podcast now.
Yep.
I invoked his name.
You brought up Voyager, and now we're going to be here for an hour.
So who was Ethan Phillips?
He's the guy in the hospital that patches them up at the very beginning of the movie. Where he's got that little scratch on the back of his ear or whatever it is.
Right.
That's him.
All right. Fair enough.
I always identify him by his voice first because he's always covered in that mask on the show. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was just fun. There was lots of... Boy, this was a great cast, by the way. I was just blown away by the power of this cast. They were fantastic. Just powerhouses, every one of them. What do you guys think?
I swear that Morgan Freeman hasn't actually aged a day since 1989.
Oh, he's a more.
Yeah. He got an earring though, so there's been some changes,
which looks cool.
That's how.
Yeah,
that's how his That's his marking of aging. He doesn't actually age. He just
collects
gets a
earrings.
piece of jewelry every once in a while.
Yeah.
This is the era of the earring. This is the era of the bolo tie. I don't know.
And I always love Denzel Washington. I feel like he generally plays Denzel Washington in every movie he's in. But I enjoy watching Denzel Washington, so I'm not terribly upset that he's basically the same person in most movies. I will admit his portrayal of Trip does... I think he's a little more on his acting chops than other movies. Looking at you, Equalizer. And Equalizer 2.
What do you mean by that when you say that he's more on his chops? Like what's...
I feel like he's less acting like Denzel Washington in this movie and more into his role than in a lot of his other movies.
Okay.
I'm starting to question how many movies you've seen with him in it, like if you're remembering correctly, because to me personally, he has played several characters that are very radically different in tone.
Okay.
From Training Day to...
Yeah, I was about to mention Training Day.
Yeah, I mean, even Equalizer, that's more of a story beat. That's not
That's
really
true. And it might be I'm focusing on the story beats and kind of his role in it versus
maybe
actor.
he got pigeonholed into certain roles.
I would say that for a little while he did. I don't think it was the whole time, but there for a little while, like in the 90s and maybe early 2000s, I think he was pigeonholed a little bit, like Deja Vu and movies.
Well, and then you got Book of Eli and but I mean even in Crimson Tide and what is the train one?
The train one.
Pelham 1, 2, 3.
Oh yeah, Pelham.
The remake.
Yeah, the remake of it, not the original.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one.
No, yeah, I think you're right. He's kind of pigeonholed in those, but you're right. I think put in different roles and kind of helps him get
I don't
out there a
think
little
he's-
more. I mean, you look at him in Fences, one of his most recent ones.
Yeah.
He did a fantastic job in that.
Yeah, I don't think he's pigeonholed as bad as Liam Neeson, though, guys.
Yeah,
Yeah,
poor Liam Neeson.
I think he's doing better than that, yeah.
I think he is. Yeah.
Yeah, I think he
That's
is.
true.
And so I haven't seen
Well, I
Fences,
mean-
Or The
but I hear
Rock.
that's amazing.
Or The Rock. Yeah.
You know
Wasn't-
what?
Wasn't he
Since
in a Shakespeare
What's that?
movie? I thought he was in a movie
He was?
about Shakespeare. I know there's one with Lawrence Fishburne, Othello, but
no,
I
it's
thought he had
actually
done
and
live
Much Ado
action.
About Nothing.
Much Ado About Nothing, right? And I thought he did great in that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one, so
My wife owns it and watches it all the time. It's one of her
It's got
favorites.
beautiful people in it.
Keanu Reeves is in it, and yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Trying to think of the other guy, the one who directed Thor. That guy is in it too. The bad guy in Tenet. Oh yeah, some of you haven't seen Tenet.
I
Anyway,
haven't seen that one yet.
um,
Okay, so about this movie.
oh, I wanted to comment before we moved off of Denzel Washington.
Sure.
I thought he did an amazing job, and there was one moment in the movie that really, really stuck out amongst some of the other things he did, and it was the part where he was being whipped. Okay, and
That defiance.
how that defiance was portrayed within his face the
Yeah.
whole time as he held the gaze of Matthew Broderick, and then that amazing, crazy tear that comes down through all that defiance. Like he is just almost blank faced, except for that tear. What an amazing, actor to pull something off like that. That's unbelievable in my opinion.
And I think a close second would be the speech that he receives. And so his acting against or with Morgan Freeman when he's talking about all the people that have died for you, in this war. And like you're walking around all angry and everything. And I think his acting where he basically takes it and then Morgan Freeman walks away, but the camera lingers on him. And his emotions, he got like several, a whole range of emotions in his face during that. And it was very powerful, I thought.
I
I
absolutely
think you're right.
agree with you. That was an amazing part on his behalf.
I think they did a fantastic job in this movie focusing on faces and the actors. Almost every time that a face was on screen, there was multiple emotions going across, I feel. And I think it was a powerhouse of a director that was able to pull that off.
Yeah, he's done some pretty good movies, too.
What other movies has he done? I didn't get a chance to look it up.
So Edward Zick, he did The Last Samurai, is one of his bigger ones.
Oh, okay.
With Tom Cruise. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed that film quite a bit.
I enjoyed that film as well.
He did Blood Diamond.
Mm-hmm. That's the one with
DiCaprio.
DiCaprio, yeah.
He did The Siege and Courage Under Fire.
Wow.
I can't remember Courage Under Fire.
That's the one where it's like kind of an investigation into a crash in the Iraq War, I believe. And like the female, who was playing in that? Man, I gotta look it up because now I'm gonna get names
I don't
wrong.
know that I've ever seen it.
It's actually pretty good. Meg Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
She's the captain.
Okay.
It's got Lou Diamond Phillips in it. Matt Damon's in it. Of course, Denzel Washington's in it. Actually, Denzel Washington and Zwimmer have teamed up in a lot of movies that Zwimmer's done. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of good people in that movie, and it's kind of an interesting, like multiple stories telling the same story about this helicopter downing and how people got out and whether or not Meg Ryan's character posthumously as a hero should receive the Medal of Honor. And this whole thing is about an investigation into that to see if she should get the Medal of Honor, having died out there. And then there's like all these different, like how the internal brass wants to see it, because it's good for publicity, and then how the crew members want to see it, and then how some of the other crew members want to see it, and like all their perspectives on what happened then. And you get the same event happening multiple. It's one of those, same event happening multiple ways on screen, to kind of show the different tales that each person is telling about it.
Right.
And yeah, it's actually I liked it a lot. We'll have to watch it at some point.
Well, I've added it to my list. So
Yeah, I'd love to see it. I haven't seen it before. Nor have I seen
Curse
Blood
in the Fire's
Diamond
pretty
either.
Yeah, Blood Diamond's pretty good too, I thought. Okay, so yeah, this movie's got. I mean, a period piece is really expensive to do, and they just it felt like they pulled out all the stops. Like there was just great costuming, felt period specific.
How epic was it when they were like not when they were out on the war like the war fields? I mean, just the amount of people out there. You just don't see that anymore. It's usually CGI.
Well, because they can do it CGI.
Yeah.
It's much more expensive to do it with that many people.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
With all the costume
sometimes.
And yet they pulled it off in this, and it was I was pretty blown away by that.
I wouldn't have been surprised to see like credits out to some of the reenactment groups. I wonder if they leveraged some of the bigger reenactment groups for it.
I definitely didn't wait through the credits to see if they were on there. What was the budget again for
Around
Flash
18
Gordon?
mil. Oh, Flash
What was the budget
Gordon?
for Flash Gordon.
1 sec.
It was like 120 something.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was
no,
some
it was far
ridiculous
lower
amount.
than that. It was the equivalent of Star. It was actually right with Star Wars.
It was more than Star Wars.
20
It was more
million.
than Star Wars. Yeah, it was 20 million. This whole movie was done with 18.
Yeah.
This was done for about the budget of Star Wars
Yeah.
and stuff. Wow,
Yeah.
that's actually blows my mind. Like how many like costumes they had and people they had. They had tons of explosions. I mean, the battle part felt very. I mean, I've never been in battle, but it's about the closest I can feel. I would feel like battle would be. On film. With all the cannons exploding around them and the gunfire and
Yeah, just putting yourself at the front of that line, running towards basically a meat grinder.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's
Well,
a ridiculous way to do war in the first place.
It
but
is.
Geez.
And it's interesting if you follow the history of why they did war that way.
Yeah.
It's super interesting. And then intriguing that the Civil War is one of the started a shift away from that style of combat. Very interesting concepts and scary as all get out for the common man. Like you're stuck in that line. If somebody goes down, you're still marching or you're still in there. You can't get out. Can't turn around. It's just, I can't even imagine it. But
Yeah, I mean, the whole system seems designed to make it easier for the commanders.
Yeah, to kind of keep them moving forward and keep them going.
Well, so they can think of things in blocks and don't have to take into account like individual, like individual unit skill or tactics. It's more along the lines of like entire regiments.
Yeah, exactly.
Entire
Well,
regiment's
and
gonna
then
do X.
and then cavalry. Cavalry was one of the main reasons they fought this way, because of just the fact that if you were scattered, cavalry could just decimate you. And
Well, sort
and this,
of. I mean, it's at the advent of the gun really democratizing war.
Yep.
And I think a lot of that, from what I read a long time ago, it's been a long time.
Well, and that's why I said the Civil War started a shift away from it.
Right.
Because
at that point
they're-
in time, it's like you can't, like the fear of cavalry is more of a historical fear at that point.
Yeah.
Because that's basically what you're working against when you're a pikeman.
Yep.
And it takes a long time for those systems to catch up.
Well, and then basically you can probably put up a graph, a correlation between reload time and the use of cavalry in battle. As the reload time got shorter and shorter, cavalry fell, significantly, just because you can just get decimated before you get to that line, so it doesn't even matter what they're in.
It almost makes
Well,
you feel
the
like, why didn't they all have, like, I know that muskets and stuff like that are definitely longer range and all that stuff, but like Matthew Broderick had that revolver. You would wonder why they didn't all have a revolver as well.
Well, I think they're expensive, and also the upkeep is a lot harder than it is with the regular muskets.
Well, because the revolver in that style, like you're loading each individual chamber yourself with a ball and powder. They're still not individual cartridges in a lot of places. And if you do get individual cartridges, I think they did exist at the time, but they were really expensive, like Crit said.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
But I got to play around a lot with the older style of firearms, the muskets and the black powder rifles. So I've been able to enjoy how they feel and how they fire, and it's just I can only imagine thousands of those going off at once. How loud, and then how much smoke those things produce. Like they're not going to show it in the movie. I think they did an okay job with the smoke. They kind of did. But I bet you it was even smokier.
Well,
than
especially
that.
like when they were on the line, the regiment was on the 54th was on the line for the first time in battle, and the cavalry was coming towards them, and they were just all of a sudden it just got real smoky. All of a sudden, then they couldn't even see the people coming through the smoke. I mean, you just got to imagine like how freaky is that? You can't even see who's on the other side of that smoke. Who's firing at you.
No thanks. Wouldn't want a part of it.
Yeah.
No, that's rough, and it just makes you respect these men so much more. I mean, I respect these guys so much, of the people who they're portraying. I mean, yes, a lot of these actors are portraying people who are fictional in the sense of they're not exactly a person that was in that regiment, but the regiment itself.
Yeah.
I mean, to respect them, and if this show is like any kind of idea of what the bullcrap that people put them through just to be that first regiment, and it still shocks me, and I know it shouldn't, but it still shocks me that these people who are so-called liberators are trying to free the African Americans, and yet how much crap these guys put up with still. I mean, it's just mind blowing. It just drove me crazy the whole time how they were just a trophy regiment for a long time, or that's why they were looking at it. And then
trophy and hard labor.
Yeah, they were just out there just still doing the work, and it just pissed me off. And then when they actually showed them what they could really do, oh my goodness, that's just I made a comment on about that, about when they finally when he blackmails that guy, his commander, to let them go into battle finally, and then when he goes back and he talks to Morgan Freeman and Andre Braugher and Denzel Washington's characters and tells them we're finally going into war and stuff. They were just so elated, and I'm just like, wow, it just gave me, I just honor these people so much that, just to be excited to vindicate themselves out there on the battle of that we can do this. Mm-hmm. We are just as good or better than you guys are.
I enjoyed the dynamics with Gutton's character, Harker, and fighting out the blackmail basically to get him on the front lines. He's always done super well on screen. I loved him in Shawshank Redemption. I think is probably the first place I saw him.
Love him.
One, and he does well with Freeman's character in there too. Not that he has a lot of on-screen interaction with Freeman's character, but still does a good job. But I loved Gutton's character in this. It's just we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room, and that it feels a little bit weird to be discussing slavery and to be discussing black rights as three white men on a podcast. But I think we can highlight the actions of our fellow man, which are incorrect and basically garbage.
Well, the civil rights fight has been a fight for recognizing the humanity in all people.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
And it's a weird situation when people start ascribing personality traits to race in any direction at any point. It's like there are terrible people, and it's a hard lesson that we have to look at. We have to look at what the past has been, and it's really nice to be reminded. I mean, it's not nice. It doesn't feel nice, but it's nice to be reminded that this is what people can act like. We can act this terribly. We can assign blame to people who are blameless. And then we can enslave people around us for our own gain. And it's a tough, like, you need to be reminded that we're capable of it so that we don't do it.
We're capable of doing that and being okay with it. You know,
as a people, yes, we are.
And that sucks. It sucks for any type, you know, of person who, you know, is treated that way.
Yeah, but as Americans, we have responsibility to understand this part of our history.
Absolutely.
It's not something. Yeah, it's not something we should look away from.
I'm gonna be honest with you. That's why I picked this movie. I mean, this is one of the ones that I'd never seen it. I looked at the premise and I liked it. I'm just like, oh wow, I don't know if I've ever heard of it. I believe I've heard of this regiment. I just didn't know much about them.
Well, and it's not something that we can just, or that we can just wave away or look at, you know, the surface matter or try to make it about different things. You know, it's about state rights and not about slavery. And it's just like, no, we need to understand what this really was about, what it was for, and, you know, accept that it happened so that it doesn't happen again.
You know, one thing I thought was really interesting about this is they showed a really good contrast, in my opinion. When they go to the South, I think, what was it, South Carolina? And they go down there and they kind of march in, and these guys are just polished, and they're saying these guys are marching excellently, and, you know, just come in and it's even kind of shocking people on how amazing they're trained and all that stuff. And then you see the people that they've been training, and you can tell that Matthew Broderick's character really cares about these people, cares that they were trained properly, cares that they, you know what they need to. And that's evident throughout the whole movie of when he's calling his people aside and saying, train them right. Dang it. You know, don't go easy on them, train them right. And then to show the guy that isn't training them right. He's just letting them go free and doing his dirty work. And it just kind of, in me, it kind of hit a contrast of, you can tell clearly this guy doesn't give a crap about them.
Yeah. So the other, I guess his commanding officer, who's slovenly, you know, they've got him depicted riding around with his jacket open, not buttoned up. You know, he's definitely meant to contrast Shaw's, you know, more buttoned up type. And so both regiments, or both companies, I don't know, they both are different in that same way. They reflect the leadership and stuff like that. But that's an interesting narrative choice because, I mean, does it make sense that it almost feels like that the script was trying to say that the reason why the other guy's army was, you know, behaving worse and wasn't as tight and was, you know, committing, you know, definitely following their guys' orders and everything, and he's just like their children, you know, and he's treating them like that. It's almost like the script's trying to say, like, if you treat men like children, they will act like children. I'm not sure that's true. I don't know if I agree with the script on that. I think each person can have their own dignity and can somewhat stand up for it, and I'm not sure that, you know, whether or not their commanding officer has dignity reflects into the troops, but maybe that's just maybe that was just the entire situation that was set up for that contrast. But it felt a little heavy-handed. I don't know. I was kind of cringing through that whole thing.
Where I understand why you're saying that. The whole, I was cringe. I definitely cringed when he told him to start the city on fire. I was like, really?
Well, I mean, Matthew Broderick's character, Shaw, can't. I mean, that they made sure to point out that if he is, you know. They went so far as to have the other officer say, and all your people will be mine, you know, if you don't follow my order.
And he wasn't going to have any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's, so he's like weighing the act against, you know,
losing his troop.
Also, what his responsibility to his own men.
Well, not even his responsibility. These people he's come to care for. I mean, you know. And that's a hard task of allowing them to maybe go into the hands of someone who won't care for or treat them like he feels like they should be.
Yeah, but I think that does still, I don't know. I get weird vibes of infantilism in kind of how the officers portray the men underneath them. You know, that they're their children and that, you know, Shaw should have
no doubt about that.
Some type of fatherly aspect to the men underneath him. And I'm not sure that's true. I mean, the officers have power, but they're not your father.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. And again, that might just be kind of my personal hang up on how the script is portraying this specific situation.
I never quite felt it went that far. I really don't. I felt like there was mutual respect between men, but I never looked at it as, you know, that kind of a fatherly kind of thing, looking down on his, you know, his troop.
Right, and that's just what I was wondering about what the script was doing by putting them in the situation with the contrasting, because I'm not sure that's historically accurate. You know, that he blackmailed, you know, in order to get them into. I'm not sure. Maybe it is.
Or the part about the shoes where he goes and roughs up the one guy to get them some shoes.
Yeah, well, not just that, but also how he got
him to the front line.
How he got him to the front line. Mm-hmm. Like, is that historically accurate? I don't know. Is it historically accurate that his troop, his company, are they a company or regiment? I think they're a regiment.
It's a regiment.
Yeah, regiment.
Yeah, it's a regiment. How his regiment were the ones that burned down a specific town there. Like, it feels like that was set up for the script to say something as an event and wasn't actually historically accurate.
Yeah.
Because of that, I'm questioning what the script's trying to get across at that moment. Like, what lesson is it trying to portray? You know, that Shaw was a better commanding officer than the other one? Sure, of course, that's fine. That the set of troops were acted differently because their commanding officers were different? Maybe. You know, and the specific lines they had the other officer say about his view of the black people in his regiment.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Shaw not responding necessarily, and only actually responding at the point where he's given an order he feels is immoral, but then given a choice between doing an immoral act or leaving his men to suffer under this other officer, most likely.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'm not 100% sure on where I land on that. It's a weird situation, I think.
Yeah, and I don't think they shot. I don't think they were shooting for absolute historical accuracy either.
Of course not. Yeah,
especially the heavy-handed script in those areas. I agree with you. I feel like it was heavy-handed in a way that was important, I think, for history, but definitely had motives going into this.
They definitely filled in the spaces because even at the very beginning it says it's based on his letters and other historical information that they were able to gather. So they're of course filling in some of the spaces, you know. But I'm sure there's definitely stuff like I wouldn't doubt that, like, that whole thing of or something similar happened about when he brought them all out in the rain, and some of it was over dramatized, of course, but and told them, like, hey, if you wanted to leave the next day, it's okay, just let me know. Just whoever's here in the morning will do what we need to do, and then they all came back. You know?
Yeah, that's definitely dramatic license, but it's also...
I bet the Confederacy, there might have been really a letter that, the Confederacy put out there. There really was.
Yeah, there was.
Yeah,
there really was.
There was.
And I was guessing that was probably, that one was absolutely correct that really happened.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that scene, because that scene serves the film in a way, because we're still getting to know these people. And this shows the character of the regiment itself as a whole.
Yeah, right? that whole scene gave me chills. That was awesome.
That they won't be broken by such a small thing compared to what they're going to have to do on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I bring up the town that was burned is because it felt like the script was setting this up in order to say something important, but I'm not sure what it said was actually important. Like it or that it was that clean it was very clean of a read.
It almost felt like it was a setup to be able to trigger him to be able to have this confrontation to get them out on the battlefield.
Well, that's an interesting idea. Like this is the moment where Shaw is seeing his commanding officers for what they are,
Yes.
as opposed to what he wants them to be. But we don't get enough time with Shaw for him to kind of come to that realization. It's almost an immediate turnaround where he blackmails his officers for right to move to the front.
I felt like, because they did, after that happened, then he told his regiment to burn the town. It did linger on his face, kind of going through the, what the heck, what should I do type thing.
There.
It did a little bit, I feel like, that back and forth of what should I do. But you're right. I mean, just right after that, it's, I'm blackmailing you to go out on the field. I wish they would have probably built that up a little bit, but that was the feeling that I had.
I think the other thing too is that one of the things I read while getting ready for this was that they really didn't want this to be this movie to be about Shaw. Like, you can't do the movie without Shaw, but they don't want it to be about Shaw.
The director came out and said he didn't want it to be a white savior thing in any way, shape, or form. He was fighting against that, is what he said.
Right, and that's really, given the climate of how a lot of Americans, and especially Southerners, tend to think about the Civil War. That's why I guess if I had to crystallize it, that's why that scene of them burning the town doesn't, like, it feels weird for me, because I could totally see people that I've known in my past justifying it by saying, well, see, this white guy led his black people better than the other white guy, and then it's not about the actual, like, the regiment isn't making each individual in the regiment isn't making choices for themselves. It's about whether or not you have a good white guy in the story or a bad white guy in the story, but it's still about the white guys. And that's the thing that always, I'm like, it's interesting, but it's too macro. I feel like
you can see that
maybe,
you can see him fighting against that, the keep away from that tendency. I mean, even, okay, I know the ending happened the way it did because that's really kind of how it happened from what I've read.
Sort of, yeah.
Sort of. But, the way they show it is they did carry on without him, once he passed.
Yeah. And some of that has to do with, with military training and stuff like that. Like, it's just, but at the same time, again, you can't have this story without Shaw, but at the same time, it's hard for an audience not to see Shaw as important. And I think that's why they spent less time with Shaw, which is fine. I'm totally good with that, because I like the empathy that the film wants you to have for all the regiment's men, the individual soldiers, compared to the officers. I mean,
it really is their story.
Yeah, but it also...
It is Matthew Broderick's character story a bit, too, because he was, put in charge of it. And he did this thing against almost kind of he even acted, it felt like he was acting a little hesitant at first, I
was definitely restrained in it. But I think the interesting part was, like, if they did this movie again, how Hollywood loves remakes and stuff like that, could you just do the movie from the perspective of the soldiers and leave the officers out of it for the most part?
Yeah, I think you could.
And would that be would you get more empathy at that point? Would you have more interesting stories to tell?
You could do it from the point of Morgan Freeman's character. How he was kind of made that, I don't remember what is his title.
Have his voiceover, and we'll just have Shawshank Redemption in the Civil War.
Oh,
yeah, pretty much.
I'm okay with that. I could listen to his voice all day, man.
First time I saw Trip in the regiment.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and there's something to be said about, like, the Shawshank Redemption being still a white man's story, just kind of narrated from the point of view of someone else.
Yeah, no, I think Shawshank Redemption's definitely a white man's story.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they're not. They're not trying to make it anything beyond that.
Right. Again, it's not really a thing. It's just something I thought about while watching the town burning scene. I was like, I felt it like it.
Right.
It might have. in some sense, it took away from the story of the regular soldiers for me, because it became about the differences between these two groups of people. Yeah. And I don't doubt that stuff like that happened. And I don't doubt that good men did bad things during war. Like that seems to be a pretty common part of it.
I know. I mean, you talk about Vietnam, like my dad was involved with, he hasn't said it, he was involved with anything, but at the same time you hear about, they had drug smuggling and they had, all of this different things going on. But the majority of the people, were they involved with that? No. The majority of people didn't even know that kind of stuff was going on, but I'm sure it happened. It's been proven.
And honestly, I'm not even sure what I want from the movie at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do I want it to not show that they were in morally compromised situation and carried it out because they basically needed to stick together? No, I don't think so. So I don't even know if it could be handled any better. And maybe it's just I'm triggered by some of the stuff that was said, and I'm just like, okay, that's got me thinking about things that aren't necessary, that are more about how the story is being told as opposed to what the story is saying.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% being like, that's a terrible part and they should pull it out and they should totally make, this a lot cleaner. It's just that I do have some misgivings about that scene, but I'm not sure that I don't know what the solution.
Yeah, you look at the
it,
entire structure of the
solved.
movie, and it's like, how do you change that? Like, how could they have done better? And that's a little hard. Okay, well, I mean, you almost could exclude that spot, but there's got to be something else, a kind of a point of contention somewhere.
Yeah, I think they wanted to. I think they wanted to do a contrast, and they definitely did a contrast. It's just it felt like a very heavy-handed contrast,
Very
and
much.
It's like there was no subtlety here.
Mm-mm.
And that's fine because I think they needed to get on with the actual events that happened. And it definitely gives like a direct motivation for what he does when he blackmails the officers later.
Yeah.
It's just, again, it's about Shaw, and that's fine. There could be a movie about Shaw, but I wonder if I don't know. It'd been interesting if the camera was like at the perspective of the soldiers as opposed to being the perspective of the officers on the horses, right?
Mm-hmm. Like seeing what they're seeing from a distance or something like that?
Yeah, like if the camera was more voyeuristic from the soldiers' perspective, kind of getting more reaction shots from the soldiers, hearing their officers talk about the way they're talking, as opposed to being actually on the two officers talking and having the other officer.
So maybe like Morgan Freeman doing a voiceover of the two officers.
No,
talking?
not a voiceover.
I'm just joking.
Just a view. Yeah, just a view. I don't need him
Get
to
away
voice
from
over
that
every
Shawshank.
action in the movie.
I think most movies would improve with Morgan Freeman's voiceover.
Yes, but I do think
Star
a little
Wars.
bit of a good thing is a good thing.
Joking aside, I agree with you from the point of view of the guys. I think it would be much better. Still hearing everything that's said, but from kind of what they're feeling and seeing.
Because movies a language, right? It the actual act of watching the movie, like what you're seeing as the perspective of the camera, puts the audience in the perspective that it's being shown. So if you put the audience basically on horseback, standing next to the officers, watching the officers talk about their men as monkeys and animals and children and everything else like that, you're putting us, the audience, with them. Like we're now complicit with them in this conversation. Whereas opposed to putting us with the soldiers puts us with the soldiers. So we're in solidarity and not even solidarity, but more like empathetic with how the soldiers are reacting to their officers talk like this. Now, not that Shaw said anything. He didn't say anything, but even that someone's going to take as, if not agreement, then at least acceptance, right?
I agree with you.
Like,
I mean, like,
that would be I think that would be interesting to see.
He did it a lot in this movie in the sense of what you're talking about. Like you want to look at I think a scene of where I think you're coming from is like, down and kind of down with the men a little bit more. Is that time that when they didn't get paid the same amount?
Yeah.
And it shows Denzel Washington down with the man, talking with the man. Like, this is bull
Well, not
crap.
only that, but the camera's down there, too.
Yes,
and
exactly.
the camera looks up at Matthew Broderick.
Yes.
Up on the pedestal. So you see, like even they know that the camera is the audience, and the camera being down with them puts our empathy with them,
Yes.
as opposed to our empathy with the soldier, and they don't change that perspective until Shaw rips up his thing, and then the camera's up with him. It's a close up, and so I think there's something there. Like I kind of feel like that would be maybe more emotionally satisfying to have it like that during the burning of the place. We're still committing the act. We're still following orders. We're still a tight regiment and stuff like that. But it's and we're kind of reacting to what we're hearing, as opposed to being up with the officers talking about these things.
I agree with that.
But I don't know. I mean, that's
actually,
like armchair.
I'm thinking about it,
so.
and I really like that perspective. That idea of that perspective, maybe a little bit more. That might have given a little bit more realism, or given a little bit more weight and taken away from the heavy-handedness in that scene. I mean, it still would be heavy-handed, but nevertheless, I think the perspective change would be definitely.
I don't know if it'd be good or not. It's just something that occurred to me.
Oh, agreed. That's amazing. Yeah. But what that leads to is, some of the best moments of the movie, of them when they first do get to fight, the face-off they have between, just the other soldiers when they're going, they're kind of waiting to fight, and all of that stuff. Just again, okay. So I like
all the disrespect.
Okay, but it gets paid off later.
Yeah.
When they're marching out to go do the fort. And you see all those same people, and I know they did that on purpose, but you see those same people that were disrespecting them, showing respect and vocalizing that respect. And, it gives me chills right now, just kind of like, hey, wow, these guys had to do a lot to earn your respect, but, finally you came to the idea that these are amazing people that are going out to fight and do something that you didn't want to do.
It highlights the journey. You look back at Dances with Wolves at the end, where the brave yells, "He's my best friend!"
Yes.
After yelling at him and hating on him for a long time, it's just that warm fuzzy feeling that you get. It's like, oh hey, they can progress, they can change. People around them can change. People around me can change.
Yeah, it's a really nice, heartwarming movie moment for sure. Yeah.
Now you just hope that maybe that really happened.
It probably happened. I mean, law of large numbers, right? It probably happened with somebody.
Yeah. They're not all going to be dicks. They're
just the majority.
There's a majority of them are dicks, or prejudiced dicks. But hey, a few of them are right there with them, showing their respect to these people.
Yeah.
By the way, that fight scene was amazing. Them going up to the. Okay, how I try to put myself in the perspective of them, knowing. I mean, first of all, like, why did he recommend his regiment to go first, knowing that they were going to mostly be slaughtered and stuff?
Why do you think?
I mean,
there's no wrong answer here.
I know. The only thing I suspect, it's the only thing I can think of, is that it was still they felt like they needed to prove themselves. I don't know.
Sure. Yeah, I could see that.
Showing their might, that they're not scared of this. They've been through this journey and know that they can do it. And I don't know. That's the best I can come up with. I just thought about that. Like, wow. You're volunteering straight up, and they are flat out telling you that most likely you're going to be slaughtered because you are the first group in, and you still volunteer? Wow. I mean, props to them. I mean, kudos to them. That is bravery right there.
It's definitely bravery. Yeah, for sure.
Man.
And I think Broderick did a great job of like conveying. Like, he had to convey a mix of emotions, specifically when he's stepping up and talking, saying, we'll go, the 54th will go. He's having to display that he is scared. You can see him as he's saying it. He's like, he actually realizes what this means. But at the same time, he's overcoming that fear constantly as he's talking, right? And you can kind of see it in the way he portrayed it, and that's pretty awesome. That was awesome to watch.
Well, to give him
Yeah,
props
it
throughout
is.
this whole movie, he does that often. I mean, the emotions that he's portraying on his face, you don't have to know or be told what he's feeling in many spots. Even like at the very beginning when he gets introduced and told that, hey, you're going to take this, being offered this regimen. You could see all the emotions going across his face, which is a sign of a true, good actor.
Yeah, for sure.
I knew what he was
That
feeling.
Yeah.
And he was making me feel some of those same feelings, dang it.
And none of us have been in that situation, I hope.
No, but he was portraying it so well that the way that he was emulating it, it made, I felt like I was feeling, could tell what he was feeling. And,
Right.
and I just, that's just a sign of a great actor, And so, but to see it at that last end, he was visually almost kind of stuttering when he said, we'll volunteer.
And, when he handed the letters off to the reporter and everything, it was, that's a lot of emotion to convey. It's complex, and that's really cool. He did a good job.
Yeah, I think he did a very good job. Stuff. Bravo to the actors of this movie. A very, very hard subject, but I mean, these guys, I think they pulled it off, well. What they were given. And stuff. I was shocked, by the way, to see Andre Braugher in here. And stuff. I don't know if you guys know him much, but I think he's a great actor. And stuff. He's the guy. His friend, was it Thomas?
Yeah, Cyril's.
Yeah, and I guess I really know him from the was it the 9-9?
Yep, Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He is. I mean, he can be. This just shows you his range of being an actor. He can play these serious roles, and he is good at it. And he is hilarious in Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yeah, I've seen all of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and I love Cyril's character or Brower's character.
Oh, so good. So when I saw him in here, I was like, I didn't. He's so much younger that I didn't recognize him at first, but that voice, man. Oh, I went, oh, I know that voice. It took me a second, and I got it. That was kind of a weird. I thought that was a kind of an interesting kind of also contrast in the movie as well. His character, by the way, kind of almost like a fish out of water type situation within the story. Of him being brought up in a different way than these other men, and kind of having to learn the hard way, of being treated in that way, or learning, the art of battle as well, and hard work. I don't know. Is that what, I mean? What did you guys think about that? Like, I mean, I just thought they seem to bring him in a lot, and that's why I'm bringing this up.
I'm not sure about there's a character arc there, and it's from like soft to hard, right? Like
really
it's
hard,
sort of.
Like, don't send me home, even though I got a hole in my shoulder. I mean,
yeah, okay, true enough. Let's say soft to hard, because he never felt like they did I guess they did a good job if their intention was to never really show him as a warrior, but definitely still show him having courage.
yes.
Right, because he never really, like, the movie really set up his character as not being very good at being a soldier. Like, he's definitely not there. He didn't turn into their best. This isn't like a Rudy situation or something like that, right?
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I know that the story would be worse for having it be one-sided in its prejudiceness. Like, it's literally white versus black, and this is the main piece of the story.
Well, his own people were prejudiced against him too.
Well, that's what I'm saying. To have prejudice within, the ranks themselves between different people. I mean, we're kind of all brought up on on these archetype stories about soldiers and different types of soldiers, and they have, they kind of, rib each other and bully each other and stuff like that. So it's interesting to have that. Like, I don't think it should not be there, but it's also like one of those, I'm not sure how I feel about it. Like, I'm not I'm not compelled by it. It's not like a character that I'm just like, oh yes, I get it. I'm, you know, I don't know. I'm kind of struggling with that character as far as like, it felt one dimensional, I guess. Like he's the bookworm, he's the nerd, he's the, you know, and everything like that. And, you know, eventually he learns how to soldier right. Like I've seen that story so many times. I'm not necessarily like, okay, yeah, it's not the character I'm drawn to. It's not the character I'm interested in. He's on the screen, he's doing something, he's talking to, you know, Shaw and you know, but I never got a real sense of like kind of connection with that character. Like I feel like I understood Private Trip more, and I felt like I understood, you know, Major John Rawlins more in the movie than I did, you know, Thomas Searles or, yeah. And it's like, maybe that's just, you know, different people connect to different parts of the story. So there's enough people in the story that you can do that with. I don't know. Mm-hmm. Like I understand Denzel Washington's character's rage and anger. Like I felt like maybe not understood, but at least empathized with. I really empathized with, you know, Morgan Freeman's character from the aspect of like, this is the thing. Like he's got a wider scope in how he's seeing this entire conflict because he's seen more of it and he's older and stuff like that. Like I get that. I'm on board with that. With the whole nerd bashing aspect of it, I don't have a good, I guess, anchor point for that character. It felt like the character didn't really grow. Like it kind of grew, but didn't really grow. I don't know. But that's just like I said, that's just my impression. That's not like, I'm not trying to say anything important or anything.
I think you're important, Crit. I think you said important stuff.
If I'm important to someone, I'm important. It doesn't matter anything else. So,
anything else anybody has to bring up?
I'm good.
I went through most of my notes, so actually all my notes. Did I bring up Neelix? No,
yep. Oh yeah.
I'm just joking.
we spent 45 minutes on Neelix.
I was fixing to say, I thought that was the show. That's the whole show, right?
Yeah.
Make sure you get a good screenshot of Neelix on the.
Oh, I will.
On the video.
I'm going to do a side by side. If we have, if everybody has all they need to say, let's go to the ratings. I will start it out. I will give it 8 out of 10 musket balls in the face.
Oof.
Ouch.
Yeah. And I would buy this movie. I really liked it.
I'd watch this movie with my mom.
Okay.
I think she'd enjoy it, other than some of the little bit of gore. It's not even that much gore.
And
but
all
she probably
the
wouldn't enjoy
N-words.
that. Yeah. I think she could deal with that, though. It's a period
Right.
piece.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I will go with 27 out of 35 extras falling down dead at the wrong time.
It's so bad because I noticed a couple. I
Yeah,
know
it's
exactly
just
what
like the
you're talking
explosion, and then like 10 or 15 seconds later, he's like throwing himself off the side. And it's like, okay. And then the other was like, the guy didn't even get, like, the explosion wasn't even anywhere near him. Like, literally, other soldiers are running past the same explosion, and he falls down. Like, it was great. It was so good. I was like, it's just hard to find good help when you have that many people out there. Like, they don't know the camera's really on them.
And if it happened just once, I would have let it go, but it really didn't. It was all the way.
That last battle got chaotic, but there were a lot of, like, here's a shot where you can just see the extras just doing their best, but their best is not very good.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a good rating. Oh, man. All right. John, you ready for this, man?
Ready?
What's your picks,
Yep.
bud?
Okay. First one. All I hear are crickets. Second one.
Okay.
Isolation can't beat this queen.
Okay.
Third one. Woody goes to Normandy.
Okay. All All right, Josh, what are you thinking?
I kind of like Woody Goes to Normandy.
That one should be fairly obvious what that one is.
Well,
though.
but which one are you filling? Because there was another one I was filling.
No, let's go ahead and go with Woody Goes to Normandy.
Are you sure?
I'm sure. Let's do it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Wait, someone's trying to tip the scale.
That's true. I should have expected Josh to lose it. So
Yeah.
okay, the first one
is all right, go ahead.
all I hear are crickets.
Uh-huh.
That's The Longest Day.
Okay.
If you remember, the troops that dropped into Normandy and the surrounding areas had little devices called crickets that made snapping sounds so they could find each other in the dark.
Did not know that. I've never seen this
And
movie.
it featured prominently in a lot of scenes in that film. So it is the most expensive black and white film ever produced. So I highly recommend it.
Wow.
All right.
Okay, Isolation Can't Beat This Queen. That's The Great Escape with Steve McQueen.
Nice.
Thanks. I loved it. It's such a good film. All right, and Woody Goes to Normandy should be fairly obvious. He's only missing Buzz Lightyear. That's Saving Private Ryan with Tom Hanks.
Okay.
I actually didn't know what movie it was. I just liked the title. I haven't seen that movie for a really long time.
Yeah,
I think it'll be great. Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't seen it for a good long time either. So, looking forward.
This will be a good
watching
movie to
it.
talk about.
I'd hoped for The Longest Day, to be honest.
Well, that's part. I was supposed to say is part of the game is like crafting your titles in such a way that the other two will pick what you really want them to pick.
Yeah, I underestimated Josh's love of Woody's.
Actually,
yeah, pretty much.
that was my second one. If Crit had said that, well, the one I was thinking of was number one. That was actually the second one that was on my list. So
And nobody was picking Queen, I guess.
no, nope.
That's
But the
also
cricket
an
one
excellent
definitely. The first thing that hit my mind was the cricket from Men in Black. The noisy cricket.
The gun?
Yeah.
Okay,
gun.
that's random.
I know, but that's the first thing that came in my head. Come on, you're talking to me. Random, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, gentlemen,
there you go.
I
Saving
appreciate
Private Ryan.
everybody for tonight, and I look forward to watching Saving Private Ryan. Ryan. And to everybody out there, thank you for supporting us on our channel. Please click the like button if you liked what you heard, but you did like what you heard. It really helps us, get put out there through the YouTube algorithm. And as always, may you be excellent to each other and live long and prosper from all of us here at Josh's House of Nerd. Good night.
Thanks for watching. For more nerdy awesomeness,